Have you ever felt trapped in a cycle you can't escape, making promises to yourself only to break them over and over again? You tell yourself this time will be different, but before you know it, you're back in the same painful pattern, feeling powerless and ashamed. For today's guest, that struggle wasn't with alcohol, but with food. A compulsive overeater, he knows firsthand the relentless mental battle, the constant thoughts about what to eat, when to eat, and how to stop, the guilt, the self-loathing, the deep fear of feeling like you can't trust yourself. But what if there was a way out? What if the same tools that help people recover from addiction could also help heal your relationship with food? In this episode, we uncover the striking similarities between overeating and alcoholism, the emotional toll it takes, and the surprising power of community and structured recovery to break free. If you've ever felt out of control with food, if you've ever wondered, why do I keep doing this to myself? Then this conversation is for you. Let's dive in.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com.
Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh. For decades, Tim battled a relentless cycle of compulsive overeating, trapped in a pattern of self-sabotage, broken promises, and overwhelming guilt. While working in the high-pressure world of Hollywood, his struggle with food became a constant, inescapable battle, consuming all his thoughts and eroding his self-worth. But everything changed when he found a path to recovery. And today, Tim is living in freedom. And in this episode, he's sharing his powerful journey, how he broke free from the mental prison of compulsive overeating, the surprising similarities between food addiction and alcoholism, and the life-changing impact of finding a recovery community. And if you're new here, I just want to take a moment to say welcome. I'm so grateful you're here. Whether you're at the beginning of your journey, deep in the work, or just exploring what a life of freedom could look like, this podcast is for you. This is a space of real conversations, honest reflections, and the tools you need to break free and create the life you deserve. I know how hard it can be, and I also know change is so possible. So thank you for tuning in, for showing up for yourself, and for being a part of this incredible community. You're not alone, and I'm honored to be on this journey with you. Let's jump in this together and listen to Tim. Hey, Tim, thank you so much for coming on and doing this show with me. I'm really excited to get into this conversation. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for asking.
Yeah. And why don't we start with just tell everybody a little bit about you and what you do?
I what do I do? I work in the entertainment industry. I'm a camera assistant working in on a TV show currently right now. I guess I've lost over 100 pounds and been able to keep it off for the last 15 years.
What was it for you that really made you realize that you had an unhealthy relationship with food? Like, how did that journey transpire for you?
I grew up in the Midwest, and I was always either playing sports or working on the farm. So I didn't have the consequences of the quantities of food that I could eat when I was younger. But as I got older in high school, and then again in college, and then once we moved off the farm, the weight started to go up, and I was able to manage it, from time to time for different reasons, whether it was getting into a relationship or a new job, and I could bring the weight back down, but then it would always find a way. At some point, I would start, whatever the motivation was would subside, and I would start to go up again. And then it started off in my 20s at, 20 or 30 pounds. And then it was by the middle of my 20s, it was 40 to 50 pounds. And by the end of my 20s, it was, 50 to 80 pounds. And I tried exercise. I ran a marathon. I did an Ironman triathlon. I moved across the country. Again, I wasn't aware of this, but I knew if I stopped moving, the weight was coming back.
Right. When did you realize that you needed help to figure it out?
Well, it was what turned out to be, at least up to this point, my last marathon. It was probably in 2003, I guess, is when my last marathon. And I was really embarrassed by the time that I had. It was one of my worst marathons. And I'd never bought a diet book. I just kind of intuitively ate, I guess is what you would say. In the Chicago airport, on my way back to Los Angeles, I bought a diet book and I read the book on the plane ride back. Sunday night, I got all the foods together that I was supposed to be eating, and I was going to have my first Monday morning. And by lunchtime, I just couldn't stop eating. I just couldn't stop. And at that point, I knew I was, if I couldn't get from breakfast to lunch without eating foods that I just read that I was not supposed to be eating, I knew I had a problem.
Right. Did you ever have anything classified like an eating disorder? I feel like this is one of the struggles with food. I feel like everybody's really familiar with, anorexia, bulimia, and now you hear a lot disordered eating. I always think food addiction because I'm an alcoholic, right? Like I'm an addicted person, so I can get unhealthy with absolutely anything. So obviously I'm going to be unhealthy and compulsive with food, just like I will be with anything else on the planet. But I feel like it's hard when you're struggling with eating habits and that relationship with food, but you don't fit in one of those boxes that you hear people talk about all the time. Like, I don't fit in the anorexia box. I don't fit in the bulimia box. I don't have those behaviors, right? I don't think that probably the mental part is probably not much different, but how was that for you? Like, did you fit in one of those boxes? Did that make your journey easier or did you not fit?
I never sought counseling or help specifically for eating. I never went to the doctor and ever told them that I can't stop eating. It wasn't until my late 20s that those numbers became like, oh my goodness, now I have a problem. I was just always a husky kid off the farm, and that's the way it was looked at. And I could literally always drop the weight. That was never a problem for me, but it was just this yo-yo cycle of going up and down, and the overall trend was upward. It wasn't, it started off at being 20, then it went to 50, then it went to an 80, and then it went to over 100 pounds. But I never sought help from a psychologist or from a doctor.
Right. But at some point you had to understand, like, you were overeating or, like you said, not eating the right foods. Like, there was some understanding that you had to seek some sort of guidance to change your habits.
At the time, I came into Overeaters Anonymous through Al-Anon. Right. That addiction does run in my family. I do have, out of the 7 family members, my parents and 5 kids, four of them have had the gastric bypass, and it was successful for them. Right. It's worked for them over 20, 25 years. They've been able to keep the weight off. So addiction is part of my family. And so I came into Overeaters Anonymous through Al-Anon. It wasn't until I had lost the weight doing training and running marathons and stuff like that. And so I thought I had it licked. I really did thought, and it wasn't until I started going back up, even as I was training for marathons. When I ran the Ironman, I actually gained a pound. They weigh you beforehand and they weigh you at the end, and I weighed 1 pound more. And they were really surprised. It makes complete sense to me. There's lots of snacks along the way. I didn't seek any kind of help for the food until that last time. Some guy from Al-Anon 12-stepped me into Overeaters Anonymous.
What are some of the unexpected side effects of having an unhealthy relationship with food? Like, I know, again, just speaking from personal experience, I know for sure it has had an effect on my self-esteem, my belief in myself, my trust in myself, right? In making good choices. I've definitely experienced, like you're talking about, you set out with the best intentions. And certainly a lot of people listening to this podcast have had those same struggles, even with alcohol, right? You start the day, I'm not going to drink today. This is going to be the day I'm starting my new life. And by 5 p.m., you're like, F this, give me a glass of wine. So it does take a toll on you as a human being. And I think even with alcohol, we have a lot of those experiences of starting to understand how much it breaks us down. What is that like with food?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar. I mean, first of all, waking up in the morning, you just feel worthless. I did it yet again. And then what did I do and how much is left in the refrigerator? And I told my wife I wasn't going to eat her ice cream sandwiches, and I ate all the ice cream sandwiches. And then you're determined to start yet again. And then again, it might make it till 5 o'clock. I might make it to lunch. I might make it to just when I start feeling better, but all the determination, and you have no idea what is wrong with you. I mean, you are literally overwhelmed by something that you must do. I mean, you must eat. And it's just like, I just don't know why I can't just have this healthy relationship with food where it's just natural. And I just felt at a loss. By the end of it, I would do anything. I would just please tell me what to do. I don't want to be myself anymore. Please help me because I don't know what I'm doing.
For sure. It's so hard. It's such a hard place
Yes.
to
I mean,
be.
just overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah, overwhelmed is the perfect word. Is all like when we have unhealthy relationships with food, is it always about emotional eating?
No. I don't think it's always emotional eating for me. I think a lot of it is habitual. It is so it was hard for me to let go of the cream in my coffee or the sugar in my coffee, right? That was always a lot of there's a lot of habit in it, and then there is a lot of emotion, but it wasn't always emotional because I could eat over anything, whether it was derived from an emotion, it was a good emotion or a bad emotion or a bored emotion or no emotion at all. I ate no matter what. I needed a hook. So all I needed was the right excuse. And if it was, you made me, I remember in one of my thin periods, I started dating my wife and I kept it together until we got married. And before I ballooned up, it's so funny when I look back at it, it's exactly what I was doing. I kept it together. I only gained maybe 30 or 40 pounds only. And then once we got married, it went all the way up to 280 pounds. And so, I remember just eating and I'm like, look at what you made me did. I needed a reason. And my mind was constantly looking for a reason. So there's a big emotional part, but I think there's a big mental aspect of it because the more I eat, the hungrier I get. As a compulsive overeater, I can not only eat my trigger foods, which are your cakes and the candies and all that stuff, and all the flour and sugar for me, that's all out. Basically almost every starch, potato and rice, I don't eat any of that stuff. But it's also certain quantities because I can eat lots of carrots and still get that same feeling of stuffed. I can get that same feeling of security through quantities. And so it's not just emotional. There's a big mental aspect of it when I run into situations that I get overwhelmed on. Thank goodness I have a sponsor that really helps me with that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I always say, I think one of the greatest challenges with food is there's no abstinence, right? And you touched on this a few minutes ago. You have to eat. It's not an option. And I think that all the time. I'm like, how grateful would I be if I just didn't ever have to eat, right? Because I'm really good at abstinence. I could do that really well. But with food, it's like it's like living in a constant state of triggered.
Yeah.
And part of the overwhelm too that I've dealt with personally, I know a lot of my clients have dealt with, is where it starts to feel like it takes over your life, right? So it's like, this is just like drinking. It's like I'm trying to
control what I'm eating, when I'm eating, how I'm eating. And then I'm constantly thinking about, okay, do I have the right foods? Do I need to go to the store? And it's like, oh my gosh, like just leave me alone. Like I'm so tired of thinking about food. Like I just want to go on with my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think food is very tricky. I don't have any experience in AA or with alcohol, but I do have experience with this. It is very tricky. And for me, the first time I was in Overeaters Anonymous, right, I didn't see that it was my mind was the greater aspect of my disease. Like you said, that it's just going to spin me up. It's going to
Right.
wind me up. And then I am going to be powerless against that first bite. And I mean, I got back down to a healthy body weight. Everything was fine. And I just failed to, continue down the path. I failed to help the next person. I failed to be of service. I failed to really keep an eye on the disease. And the right day, at the right time, and the right excuse appeared. I took that bite and I relapsed for 5 years. And my plan was I will lose the weight and then I'm going to come back to Overeaters Anonymous and tell you how I lost the weight. Well, that plan didn't work, right?
Right.
And so, but it is I not only have to have defined foods of what I don't eat, but I also have to have defined foods of what I do eat. It's funny, I'm sitting here, my computer I'm in my trailer that I move across the country in. One of the reasons is because I'm working in Texas today. I'm moving back to California tomorrow. And so, I have all my foods with me. I don't, and even though all the food is free on set and stuff like that, I don't eat any of that food because it's very difficult. Oh, does that have, is that breaded? Is that chicken breaded? It's so much easier if I spend the money, I buy the food and I just make it myself. And, that's very freedom producing for me. And it is, as a compulsive overeater, it's not something that I can just turn my back on. I must every day be very diligent about what I eat. I'm looking at my computer and I see I've got a note. I've got a note that has all my meals that I eat. I've got a list of meals. I've got 7 or 8 breakfast. Over 15 years of working with my sponsor, I've got about 7 or 8 approved breakfasts. I've got my airport breakfast. I got my road breakfast. I've got and they're all it's very simple. Now, at the beginning, it's very difficult, and working with new people, it's very difficult, or not difficult, but time consuming to help them figure out what. And if all I got to do is I just have to eat any one of the 50 meals that I have on the notes, and if I have a question, I can just pull up my phone and look what I've agreed to, has been discussed. If there's anything that needs to be different, I just make a phone call. Because for me as a compulsive overeater, it's very, not only the foods I don't eat, but how I do eat. Because when I relapsed, it was just with quantities. I just started adding more to the plate and more to the plate and more to the plate. And I like the feeling of being full. When they talk about in the big book, we like the effect produced by alcohol. Well, I like the effect of being stuffed.
Amen. Yes, I'm the same way.
And so the more I eat, the more I want, even of abstinent foods. I need real supervision. For the lack of a better word, I need real accountability and real supervision.
I remember working with a health coach years ago. It was probably 10 years ago now. And I said to him, listen, I like to overeat. Like, I'm just going to be honest with you. I eat a lot. It's been a joke my entire life. I'm the smallest person with the biggest appetite. I eat more than almost anybody I know. And I have always been that way. And I said that to my health coach. It's like, I like to overeat. And he's like, Angela, let's be honest. He goes, are you sitting down and overeating broccoli? I go, no. He goes, right. So it's not that you like to overeat. It's like you like to overeat certain things. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. I do not appreciate a reality check sometimes.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I wish I felt that way about broccoli.
Yeah, if broccoli has cheese on it, then we're good. Yeah.
Then it's way more attractive, no doubt. Okay. So for anybody listening right now that's thinking, I want to start working on my food stuff, how would you tell them to start? Like, what is a good, not overwhelming, but just a little baby step that people can take to just start getting more acquainted, more educated, that sort of thing?
I've just become aware of what foods that you're turning to, that you're putting on your plate. It's those are the for me those are the once I start eating them, I can't stop eating them, right? And so I would look at what foods am I eating almost at every meal, whether it's starches, whether it's sugar, whether it's flour. Those things for me it was very important, and it was only through working with my sponsor, because he could see it. I can't. I'm in the middle of it. I really need help seeing that stuff, because I think it's just normal that you eat potatoes at every meal. I think it's normal that you have 2 servings of rice at 3 meals a day, or whatever that might be, right? I think it's normal because that's all I know. That's all I see. If I set my mind to doing something and I can't do it, I would really be asking for help. That's really the key. Is I tried, and it wasn't until I got to the point where it was 100 pounds. And what was it going to be the next time? Is it 200 pounds? Is it 300 pounds? I don't know how big I have to get if I'm trying to do this on my own. So to become aware that if you've set it as a goal to not do it, and you constantly keep going back to do it, you might need help. You might need, I'm not saying if it's a 12-step program or whatever, you might need somebody to help keep you accountable.
Yeah. And I appreciate that you point that out too, like that it's not necessarily a 12-step program, right? Like there are so many options. And this is the same thing on the addiction side of things. Like most of us as podcasters have our own programs and communities and things like that. Like there's so much more available now, just because of the internet and social media and whatever. You can find so many ways to get help. It doesn't have to be 12-step based. I'm a lover of all the 12-step programs, but yeah, for anybody that's not, there are a million options. So that definitely shouldn't hold you back.
Yeah. I would become aware that you alone have tried to do something and you can't do it. You just need help, whether that's through a psychologist, whether that's through a peer support group, whatever that might be. Even a nutritionist might help you.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the physical aspects you've noticed in losing weight? Like how different do you feel?
So I lost the weight 15 years ago. And I can just remember one day on set, and I was just exhausted. We were working in Los Angeles, and we were working in the cliffs of Malibu, and we were carrying stuff up the cliffs. I mean, we were up and down these steps, and I literally couldn't go on. I could not go on. And that was when I was in my mid 30s. Now I'm in my mid 50s, and we work out in the middle of a field every day. We work out in the middle of a field pretty much every day, and I have much more energy to do the work, and I rarely get tired of the work. So definitely the energy level. I don't have that after lunch hangover where I've eaten so many carbohydrates where I'm tired. The brain fog of that, of waking up in the morning, of having binged the night before, whether it's on sugar. I sleep so much better now because my body is not working on the foods that I stuffed in myself at the end of the night, trying to digest it while I'm sleeping, and my body is actually getting enough rest. And really, finally, the biggest thing is I don't feel worthless. I mean, when I would wake, I remember that feeling of just it was almost like the cotton mouth, because you've eaten so much, your body was so dehydrated, you'd wake up with this hangover, and it's a food hangover, and then you'd be like, I did it again. I did it again. I told myself yesterday I wasn't going to do it, and I ended up doing it. And I mean, I have been given a top-notch education. I've been given a work ethic. I've got a family that loves me, and what's wrong with me? I can't stop eating. And so I was so lost. And the mental aspect now, I mean, I have goals and I have ambitions, but they don't drive me like they used to. So, I've been given back an entirely different life, a life that I never knew I wanted. because of not just the weight, but for me, the 12-step program and the recovery the spiritual healing that has gone on in the 12-step and in the recovery rooms for me.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about overeating and compulsive overeating? What do people get wrong, or what information do you see circulating in the world that is not accurate?
Well, I mean, I think number one is just that people believe it's just a bad habit. It's a bad habit, or it's weak willpower. And that's even something that inside of me that I think that I don't have this, that somehow my mind has told me I've got a body that has this craving, that once I start putting that food in, I get hungrier. I become ravenous. It goes past my willpower to stop it. Just like an alcoholic with alcohol. Right. And so they just think that and people will come up to you as an obese person. They will come up and feel free to offer you advice and on how to lose weight. They will give you business cards on, oh, I'm a trainer and this like this, we can get, and it's just, I've had people go, what is this? That I have somehow chosen this, and that if it wasn't something that I could change, I just tried to change it on my own. I didn't seek enough. That's all. I hadn't found the place that was right for me. And when I did, it has been just a godsend. So, I mean, those misconceptions, really, number one, that it's laziness and it's weak willpower. And that people think that you can just put the fork down between every other bite. And that's not really when I'm eating, when the disease is running the show, I'm eating until it's all gone.
Interestingly, people feel free to offer their advice and commentary when you're thin also. Because yeah. I had plenty of that. Like, I was so irritated. I'm from Los Angeles also, and I'm in Kansas City now. And I was born and raised in Kansas City, but in LA for many, many years. And when I came back to Kansas City, it's a different body style, right? Like, LA is a much more slender person than a Midwest person. And when I got back to Kansas City, I'm telling you, the first few years, like, I was so, I don't even know the word, like baffled kind of at the comments people would make to me about my weight. Oh, looks like you need me to buy you a cheeseburger. You're skipping meals. And I'm like, why do you feel like it's okay to make commentary on my body in any way, right? Like, it's none of your business. Like, if I'm healthy and I'm happy and I'm comfortable, why are you worried about it? But yeah, it's interesting. People do find their own opinions to be very important, and they do like to share them, whether you like it or not.
Yes.
Do you have any book recommendations?
The book that's really transformed my life is the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I do like to listen to a lot of podcast spiritual speakers, Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul. But for me, the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the OA 12 and 12, the AA 12 and 12, and helping the next person, those things have been instrumental in not only in my recovery, but also helping the next person gain some freedom from food.
What were some of your early setbacks? Like, when you first started your journey, like, what were some sort of everyday things that would derail you?
So I was very lucky. I came into Overeaters Anonymous. I came in the first time and I came back. Once I'm locked in onto something, I'm pretty good at executing the plan. The big thing is boredom for me. It is continuing. The 10th and 11th step are very difficult for me because at 10, 11, and 12, continue, seek, and carry. That's not something that comes naturally to me. That's not something that I'm a great starter, and I'm a terrible finisher. I really am. And so I could always lose the weight. So I've never had problems beginning.
Yeah.
It is continuing that I would get tripped up on. And then once I'm out there, it was 5 years for me. And I really thought I could do it on my own. Even though I was in Overeaters Anonymous, I had a year abstinence. I was doing really well. But I really did not realize how baffling the disease is. The mind is just saying, it's okay. It's just one donut. And it really, it came to me and said, no, it's just one donut, Tim. It's okay. You'll just start again tomorrow. And it wasn't one donut, it was all the donuts. And number two, I didn't start the next day. It took me 5 years until I was willing to come back.
Yeah.
So,
What about social situations? Because I know with alcohol for sure, that's always a struggle, right? When you quit drinking, it can be really awkward to be in those social situations because alcohol is so socially acceptable.
yeah,
Everything revolves around alcohol. Now, as a sober person, everything revolves around food. Everything is let's go get something to eat. Let's meet at the coffee shop, right?
yeah,
Everything, we're going to dinner, because you don't drink now. So
yeah,
those are the
yeah.
things that you do. But were social situations difficult when
Oh
you
yeah.
were changing those habits?
Oh yeah, yeah. When I was first abstinent, my favorite pie when I was a kid growing up was pumpkin pie. That's what I always got for my birthday. And my mom drove it all the way up to Los Angeles and gave me a pumpkin pie. And I said, Mom, I can't eat. And my mom, she cried. She was very upset that I wouldn't eat her pie. And it was just like, I'm sorry, I just can't eat it. And that was the last pumpkin pie I got. I think she sees that this is a better way of life for me. But, oh yeah, people that would make comment, they still to this day, when I bring my salad to work every day when there's a salad bar right over there. But this is just easier. And they, you know, I'm definitely better at not reacting to their comments on my food. I did that poorly for many years and had to make many amends for swearing at people to mind their own business in a very mean way. There were certain restaurants that I would go to, but I would not eat. And people would just be like, well, why aren't you eating? You can have this and I can't eat that. I can't find any option here that works for me. And those people, some of them are in my life and some of them are not in my life. So, it's okay that, my first date with my wife was I did not eat. I had already eaten my dinner, and this is when I was abstinent the first time in Overeaters Anonymous. And we went out to dinner, and I had already eaten. And I just told her, I said, listen, I'm a compulsive overeater, and I've already eaten my dinner. And I'd love to come out to dinner with you, but I can't eat. And she's like, yeah. So we went out to dinner, and the rest is history 20 years
The
later.
rest is history.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, favorite question. What is your favorite thing about being abstinent from food? Like, how do we say that?
I think that the best part of being abstinent is number one, not being a slave to food. Not having to start the day. Is this going to be the day that I don't do it? And I have there's a foundation and a core that I know what my food, when I think about the 24 hours ahead, the food is the first thing I think of. It really is. It's like, I know what my food's going to be for that day, and really this connection with a higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, the spirit of the universe, energy, love, anything you want to call it, whatever works for you, today is going to be okay. I used to rush to here and there and get there and got to be there. And it's okay to be right here. Actually being abstinent and being a member of Overeaters Anonymous, being in the fellowship, I'm okay right here, right now. And food stole that from me. I believe this thing, it wasn't okay now. I will eat, and it made it okay. And that worked for the longest time, and then it stopped working. And abstinence and Overeaters Anonymous and the fellowship of Overeaters Anonymous, because I must have both. I must have the fellowship because I will forget, and I need constant reminders of what it was like. That's what the newcomer really helps me. It reminds me of what it was like, how crazy it is. And then I need to constantly be moving towards connection with a higher power so that I can be okay right here, right now, no matter what is going on. And that the gift is that peace of mind. I'm just catching a taste of it after 15 years. Just a taste of peace of mind. It's racing ever so slightly less, and I look forward to what the future holds.
The next chapter. I love that. Tim, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your experience with us. This is such valuable information. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
If today's episode hit home for you and you're ready to take the next step, I want to invite you to book a free call with me. No pressure, no commitment, just a conversation to explore what's possible for you. I know it's easy to think coaching isn't for you, or it's out of reach, or you can do it on your own, but that's exactly why we talk. There are different options, and together we can figure out what works best for you wherever you are in your journey. It's addictionunlimited.com/call. It's fast, it's free, and most importantly, it's a step forward. addictionunlimited.com/call. And if you book the call, make sure you show up. Your time is valuable, and so is mine. And so is this opportunity to start making real change. So let's do this together. Schedule your free call now, addictionunlimited.com/call. And of course, that will be linked in the show notes. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.